Looks like the CE4, doesn't it? Now, this is OnePlus's Ace 3V. This is the one that's expected to launch globally as the OnePlus Nord 4. While it might look like the CE4 at first glance, the Ace 3V, it's a much more polished, a much more premium phone. So what is special here? Well, let's get the unboxing out of the way and find out. Now, if this is your first time here, or in case you just don't remember, my name's Ash, you're watching C4E Tech, and let's get started. Let's first start with the unboxing. The OnePlus Ace 3V, it comes in your typical red OnePlus box. Let me get rid of the plastic and open it up. First, we have this red insert, and this houses a bunch of stuff. You have your letter from OnePlus. Now, we also have a SIM ejector tool, your regular OnePlus stickers, the informational booklets, an opaque silicone case. Under the right light, this case, it has a mild shimmer, but more often than not, it's just gonna look like your standard case. Now finally, we get to the OnePlus Ace 3V. I bought the space gray variant since the other one, it was insta sold out. The purple silver, it definitely looks to be the more popular SKU. To me, it kinda reminds me of the old Huawei P series phones, it's got that slight gradient. Can you see it? Leave a comment. Anyways, returning back to the box, we next have the 100-watt SuperVOOC charger, and that's followed by the regular OnePlus Red cable, USB Type-A to Type-C. This phone also has a 5500 mAh battery, and with this 100-watt SuperVOOC charger, you should be able to get this to about 50% in 12 minutes, and you can get a full charge in under 30. Now let's get to what I think is the Ace 3V's biggest strength, hardware. On paper, it is not too dissimilar from the CE4. Right? You have LPDDR5X, UFS 4.0, and a little plus next to the chip. But no, the specs aren't even close. The Ace 3V is in a different league. It's almost twice as powerful. And if you didn't expect that, a big thank you to Qualcomm's convoluted naming. Now guys, I want to start by explaining what the 7 Plus Gen 3 is, and more importantly, what it's not. Now to understand this, we need to go back 1 year. Now last year, Qualcomm released a 7 Plus Gen 2, and this was a pretty simple chip. It was basically, as you can see here, a toned down version of the 8 Gen 1. So we got the same power and efficiency cores without even the clock speeds being changed. With the Prime core, same technology, slightly lower clocks. Of course, the big difference here was that the GPU was considerably weaker. Now knowing that, look at the 7 Plus Gen 3 and the 8 Gen 2. They aren't quite as similar, are they? Now let's bring the 8 Gen 3 into this comparison and things will get clearer. What Qualcomm have done this time is take the same flagship cores from the 8 Gen 3 but implement them in a way similar to the 8 Gen 2. So we do get the new X4 Prime core, the new A720 performance cores and the A520 efficiency cores, but the breakup, the split up, it's not 1 plus 5 plus 2 like the 8 Gen 3, but it's 1 plus 4 plus 3 like the 8 Gen 2. Now, of course, the clock speeds are lower than the 8 Gen 2, but the new technology used is why the 7 Plus Gen 3 CPU performance almost as good as the 8 Gen 2. But once again, the GPU, it's definitely not as good as on the 8 Gen 2. The Adreno 732 here is, as the name indicates, a step up from the Adreno 730 that we got on the 8 Gen 1. So what this means for us end users is that for day-to-day tasks, the 7 Plus Gen 3 is gonna run just as well as the 8 Gen 2. But for gaming, the Adreno 740 on the 8 Gen 2, it's still gonna be more powerful, it's still gonna have an edge. That said, the GPU here, it's powerful enough to run most games, though in my experience, the Ace 3V, it does seem to run a little hot while gaming. It looks like OnePlus have optimized performance over temps since there is not a lot of throttling. Now moving on, another thing that's been improved on the Ace 3V, it's the materials used. Here OnePlus have opted for a glass back, which in turn gives the phone more heft. It feels more solid in hand because it's heavier at 200 grams. That said, to be honest, it's still just as comfortable to hold in use. And for that extra weight, we also get the alert slider, which I love. Now guys, personally, I think the alert slider is something very OnePlus, something quite unique, and I really think they should be including it on all their phones regardless of the price point. Now anyways, the other placements identical to the CE4. The Type-C port, it's still USB 2.0. The sides, as you can see, are still plastic, and the fingerprint scanner placement is still a little too low. Surprisingly though, the stereo speakers were slightly louder on the CE4. Here, have a listen. Now the Ace 3V though, it gets an IP65 rating and an improved display. It's still a 120Hz OLED, roughly the same size, 6.74 inches, but the resolution, it's been increased 1.5K. This panel, it also happens to be brighter, and a manual mode, it performs similar to the CE4, outputting almost 600 nits of brightness, but under auto, it can go brighter, up to about 1250 nits. On the software front, since the Ace 3V is China exclusive, it's currently running on Android 14 with ColorOS 14 on top. Globally, as the Nord 4, it should come with the same OxygenOS 14 that we saw on the CE4. ColorOS 14 on my unit, now I'm not going to go too much into ColorOS 14 apart from the fact that in my time with the Ace 3V, it felt snappy and responsive, and that shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone given everything we've seen about this chip so far. And on that note, let's now talk optics. At first glance, it looks like the cameras are identical. But look closer and you see the cameras on the Ace 3V are actually larger. But, yep, there's another but here. When you see the actual specs of the sensors, yet again they seem identical. So let's forget all the theory and test it out IRL. That's what I thought. But that kind of confused me even more. Even at first glance, it's clear that these images aren't identical. Like the ones shot by the CE4, they have a more contrasty look. But when you look closer, the dynamic range, the detail levels, even under low light, when you see these images side by side, the actual quality more or less feels the same. And add to it, with ultrawides, even there you see the same difference in contrast. It makes me feel that that slight difference in colors, you can attribute it more to OxygenOS versus ColorOS, the processing, rather than it being a difference in hardware, whether it's the ISP or the sensor itself. Anyways, there is one area where the Ace 3V, it does very well, and that's with 4K video. Even at 4K 30, the EIS is pretty well implemented. The Ace 3V ends up shooting footage that's a whole lot more stable. And of course, it can also do 4K 60, something the CE4 cannot due to the 7 Gen 3's limitation. Now with selfies, we have the same 16 megapixel selfie shooter, and the Ace 3V, it tends to brighten up images a little too much. Now this is pretty common for Chinese firmware, so I think this is something that would change with a global release. Selfie video, sadly, is still restricted to 1080-30. And finally, let's talk pricing. Now the Ace 3V, the base is 256 gigs here, and it starts at just 2000 RMB in China, which converts to about $280 or 23,500 Indian rupees. And that's cheaper than what the CE4 128 gig version sells for in India. So no doubt, the Ace 3V, it's excellent value for money. Now when this goes global as the Nord 4, what do you think OnePlus would price it at? More importantly, knowing what you know, which is the launch price of the CE4, what do you think would be a fair but still realistic asking price for the Nord 4? At what price would you be interested in buying this? Let me know in the comments below. And I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.